All right, welcome everyone. This is Mike Hano from the Canadian Ski Guide Association. I'm here with Felix Villot, and we're going to take you through the 2024-25 technical rope rescue updates for the level 1. So this will just be a demonstration of the mechanics required, and essentially if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your course director and they can clarify. And of course, some of the winter related details will be covered specifically on course. This is strictly the mechanics of the rope rescue system. So you're going to come on site. The first thing you're going to do is make your initial radio call at the base. You're going to identify yourself, your location, the nature of the situation, and the rescue gear that's required to solve the problem. In this case, we're doing a rope rescue. So you'll pull your rope rescue gear out, grab the tail of your rope out of your rope bag or your stuff sack, and you're going to start by doing a figure 8 on a bite. So figure 8 on a bite. This is in preparation for when you return to the top. This will be your rescue tether. So pull enough rope out of the rope bag with the figure 8 on the bite, throw it to the edge of the lip, and once you've determined the length that you need, then you'll throw another figure 8 onto a bite. Then you're going to use a triple action carabiner. Does not need to be a captive eye carabiner, it's triple action. And anchor it back, well back into your shelves so that it keeps the system nice, clean, and tidy. Next thing you're going to do is set yourself up for rappel. This is where you take your 2 meter 7 mil cord with a 3-wrap prusik onto the rappel strand. Make sure the prusik cord is nice and tidy. So that will be your backup to your friction device, which in this case will be asking that you demonstrate the Italian hitch, or also known as a munter hitch. And all of these hitches and knots, they'll be in separate videos, so you can refer to those if you're unfamiliar with them. And you're going to take your rope bag and you're going to clip it to your harness. Make sure to do a comprehensive A, B, C, D, E, H, and P check, and the acronym is the anchor. So you're going to want to load test the anchor well away from the hazard. Make sure that it's secure. Anything that's attached to the anchor, carabiners, knots, etc., all have to be correct. B is for the buckles on your harness. Make sure that they're threaded through correctly, they're double backed. The harness is not twisted, it's worn correctly. C is for any of the locking carabiners, squeeze the gates. D is for our device, so in this case we're using a munter as a friction device to rappel. It's threaded through correctly. You have a prusik as a backup. E is the ends of the rope. Make sure that you always have a knot at the end of your rope. H is our helmet, and P is our pack. So now that we have all the gear necessary, in the winter environment, you'll have your probe in hand and you'll be probing your way to the edge. As you do that, when you want to start probing, make sure to set your brake. Keep one hand on the brake strand and probe as you go along. You can leave the probe in the snow as you reposition or reset. You'll take a few more steps. And the goal here is to try and make your way efficiently to the edge so you can make contact with your patient. So once again, set the brake, hand on the brake strand, probe, probe, probe until they get near the edge. Once you are near the edge and you want to take both hands off the rope, make sure to secure yourself. So we're going to use a tied off munter here. Once again, these knots and hitches will be in separate videos, but this is considered a full strength backup. And so now you can come hands free. You can make contact with your patient. What you want to determine is patient condition and any other additional rescue gear that might be needed. So you're going to make your secondary radio call back to base with your patient update. Now you can prepare your lip hands free. You're going to put something on the edge to prevent the rope from cutting through. And once you've done that, you can then resume your rappel by undoing your munter, taking a little bit of slack. And you'll notice that I'm managing the prusik with my index finger and my middle finger. I'm avoiding grasping it with my hand because then it won't work as intended if needed. So index finger, and then we're going to rappel our way down to the patient. Make sure during your lip prep that you offset your lip prep away from your patient. You're not kicking any snow or debris down onto your patient. Very important, patient care. Once you get to the patient, you're going to, once again, secure yourself, tie yourself off so that you can come hands-free. You're going to take about 4 or 5 meters or whatever amount of rope is needed to start to set up your rope system when you get back to the top, and then a figure 8 on a bite. And this is where you're going to use one of your triple action captive eye carabiners. The figure 8 will then go into the patient's belay loop on their harness, and we're going to use one of our short prusiks, 1.5 meters, and the section of rope which is between you and the patient, not the end that's coming out the rope bag. So 3 wraps on the prusik here. And it can go into the same carabiner as the ropes are up rubbing against each other. And you're going to pull that slack that you'd used for your system through until such a time that there's a small or minimal loop, so that now you can start to set yourself up for your ascent. And so once our patient is secure, we can now set ourselves up for our ascent. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add before we subtract, one of the fundamental principles of rope safety. So you're going to take your long, your 6 meter, 7 millimeter cord, and you're going to girth hitch that through your harness. And you're going to take one of your short prusiks, 3 wraps, and that'll go below the chest prusik. And now what we're going to do, we need to measure here. So we're going to put some load on our main chest prusik, which is this red one that you see in the image. The shorter foot prusik will be about a hand's distance away. And then we're going to set the distance using a clove hitch between the girth hitch of our harness and this carabiner here. It's very important. In order for this to act as a backup to our main chest prusik, we have to make sure that this prusik is below and tensioned. So clove hitch into this carabiner, and tension the system. So you can see here it's a bit tight, so one beauty with the clove is we can adjust it. And so now we can be sure that when both are under tension, that the bottom one is not binding the top, and vice versa. And then you'll create a foot loop. This is based on your own height and flexibility, but you'll create a foot loop for yourself whereby you can start to ascend the rope back to your anchor point, and there'll be a video specifying how to do that exactly. So now you're set up for your ascent. You can now undo your third attachment point, which is your tied off munter, and you can begin to ascend the rope. Once you've come back to the top, this is the time for your third radio call. You're going to update the base on the nature, the patient condition and nature of the injury, if any additional gear is needed, as well as the ETA for the additional help to the scene. Once you're at the top and you've made that third call, now you can make your way back to the anchor point and you can start to set up your haul system. Make sure as you're doing so, you're keeping tension in the line. You don't want to ever create slack between yourself and the anchor point. Once you get back to your anchor, same principles apply. First, secure yourself before you do anything else. So this is where you take your rope rescue tether, and we're going to add before we subtract. We're going to use a triple action carabiner, captive eye. And a short tether, so one of your short prussiks, very, very similar to how you secured your patient on the end of the line. And this prussik is to act as basically a runner, so when you're going between the anchor point and the edge of the lip, you can keep the system under tension, so there's not too much slack being created between you and the anchor point. Okay, now that you're secure, you can start to undo some of the system you had to ascend the rope. You can remove your chest prusik. And the way we've set up our ascent here with the short prusik, this purple one that you see here, we can use that as our progress capture. So we're going to take our pulley and we're going to put it on the anchor side here. It'll go into the end node of our shelves, so if you be for tidiness. Short purple one can go into that same carabiner. And we'll just remove this from our harness to remove any sort of tripping hazard. Be diligent about managing your gear. If you're not racking it on your harness, then in all likelihood you want to be putting it in a pocket so you don't lose it in the deep snow. Okay, now we need to back up our haul system here. So we're going to take a short prusik, onto the haul strand, this being the load line. Here we're going to use a triple action captive eye carabiner somewhere in one of the rear shelves. Lock that off. Now this becomes a backup to our main haul system. We can then approach the lip, instruct our patient that it is now time to allow that prusik that we had on their strand. They can feed that rope through until it comes tight onto the figure 8 on a bite. And we're going to haul our patient up on the figure 8 on the bite. So we'll instruct our patient to give us that slack. And as they're doing so, we're pulling everything through. And once the patient has come tight. So we'll ensure that the patient has come tight onto the figure eight on the bite, and you can take up a little bit of the slack. Just make sure to give yourself enough to set up your first advantage. So this is where another short prusik is required. We use a locking carabiner here to help close our system. Try and keep the strands nice and clean so we don't have any strands crossing. And we've now got our first advantage in place, and we can begin our haul. At this point, if additional rescuers appear on scene, it's your job as the rescue leader to make sure that they understand that any area beyond the anchor point here is an unsecure area. They cannot go beyond this point unless they're somehow attached to a rope. But so long as they stay behind the anchor point, they're free to assist in the haul. So, this being the haul strand, you can give commands, some nice hand over hand, and when there's enough tension on the rope, the prusik here will mind the tension. And just ensure, once you're taking tension in the system, make sure that your prusik minding pulley is working and that the prusik is indeed biting, which it is in this case. So, what you may notice in a single rope rescue, with this amount of advantage, it may be difficult to raise the patient. If that's the case, or not, you will be asked to add one more advantage. So you're going to take your long 7mm cord in the shelf somewhere in the center here. You're going to use a follow-through overhand. You're going to feed it through the webbing, anchor off the 7mm. Back, and then make sure you are mindful of the haul strand. So on the haul strand, you will use another short piece of cord to create a rope grab. Once you've created your rope grab, you can then use a non-locking carabiner. Feed the anchored strand through the non-locking carabiner, and you're ready to resume your haul with additional advantage. Once you've done a few throws of that, making sure that every time you reset your advantage, you're taking up any slack that's created in the system back here with this prusik here. And then at some point, your instructor will ask you to remove the final advantage. It'll have become redundant due to additional help. You simply remove that. Keep this tidy, move it to the back, and you can resume your original haul. As the patient approaches the lip, it's very important that you instruct your haulers what to do to haul slowly and to be mindful of the system. Take up any slack that's created anytime you reset your advantages. You will come to the edge of the lip and you will assist your patient over. As you do that, and the haulers continue to pull towards the anchor, make sure that you instruct your haulers to keep tension in the line. We never want to create slack in the main haul system. Once the patient's at the anchor, then the rescue will be complete and everything will be done. We wish you luck, practice lots. We look forward to seeing you on course.